So Shaina, it is so great to be seeing you. I know it's unfortunate we can't be seeing each other in person as we've done in the past, but COVID-19 has been a real disruptor for all of us. I would love to get your take as we talk about how to disaster-proof your career, which I think is an ambitious title, especially for a 10-minute conversation. But tell me a little bit about first, how has it changed your life? And putting on your visionary hat, if you will, for a moment, what are you imagining is going to be happening for folks on the other side of Corona?
Great question, and thank you for having me here. So how it changed my life is interesting because I think that as someone who works from home and who works for myself, not a lot changed. You know, besides having like extra family members around, which has been nice sometimes. But I think that you really get to self-motivate yourself, and you get really good at that when you work for yourself from home. So I think for those of us, we don't feel so much of a change. It did change my business though, in terms of I see who's reaching out to me. In the beginning, people were just like, on hold. They didn't know if this was going to be a week or two. And now over the last, I say 2-3 weeks, people are ready to get back in. Okay, this is the new reality. How do we deal with it? And I've been dealing with different sorts of questions, but similar to the kind of work that I always do. So yeah, so I would say in terms of how it changed, I'm very excited, which I feel like maybe sounds callous to say, but I do feel, and this was one of my first reactions once I realized that this was, going to be a big deal and take a while. I'm really excited because I think that it's going to completely change, the curve, so to speak, of the freelance and self-employed economy that's been growing. I mean, like half of millennials, I think, are already, and 35% of the entire US economy freelances at some point. So, and I've been reading that there was going to be maybe by 2030 that there would be like 50% of the entire population. So I think this is a great chance for, I think that we're going to see that happening a lot faster in the next year or so.
Interesting. Yeah, because I think that when people are forced to make change out of necessity, which is, I guess, redundant, forced it out of necessity. But the idea is when we do have to make changes, so we start to realize that it may not be so bad, or maybe I could really do this and I could do this kind of well. When I'm talking, for example, to educators, because I've been doing a lot of webinars and some of them specifically for teachers, that's my former line of work in an area, a group of people I still want to give so much to if I can. So I know that maybe not in certain communities, but I think education at large, there's going to be much more remote and virtual learning, flipped learning, a lot of it because teachers were forced out of necessity to learn new skills and to create a new way by which to share information and engage their students. I think that's true for so many different industries. So here's the question I have for you that I think is really why I so much wanted to talk to you about this. And that is, a lot of people, sometimes they're laid off, they're furloughed. Maybe it has nothing to do with them, but sometimes they could be positioning themselves all along a little bit differently so that when challenge or crisis strikes, they have so much value to their organization, to their company, that they're not the ones necessarily dealing with this, at least not in terms of being terminated or feeling the brunt of it, in its core sense. Alternatively, you can take this and talk about how people can reimagine themselves moving forward. Tell us, please, from your perspective, how do you talk about disaster proofing your career, your resume? What are some tips you would tell people who want to be as Teflon, as bulletproof as possible moving forward to have the career where they make choices rather than have choices be made about them?
Great question. I love it. And the real answer is going to be the same for a regular situation, right? So I feel like the people who are doing the right things all along, they're pretty okay now. And we can all take this wake-up call to learn from them and do the exact same thing. So I'll go through a couple of those like really important things. I mean, obviously be in the right job, right? So if you're in a job and you wonder every Monday or whenever, if you're in the right job, or if you're in the right industry, you're going to have trouble, because when people get cut, yeah, you're going to be one of the first ones cut. And you may not be very confident about looking for another job, because you'd be like, well, I don't know if I was that great at it. If you're not sure, you're definitely not going to sell yourself very well. So that's the first thing, right? People who are confident in their career, and people who thought about their career choice and made it their career choice. And that's a continuous process. Just because it was a good career choice 10 years ago, you mentioned that you changed careers. So did I. So I think that's continuous. That's something to ask yourself every year, on January 1st, on your birthday, pick your date, but that should be an annual thing. Am I in the right career?
So grab your cake
Yeah.
and analyze your career. I got it.
Yeah. Well, having a December birthday, so I'm sort of always in that mode. So I do
Okay,
take a time to,
that's fair.
every year in December, and say, am I ready for January 1st? So I think that's number one, be in the right job. The second thing is that be at the top of your job. Don't be complacent. Like, if you're the kind of person who isn't getting raises, who isn't getting promotions regularly, then you're not disaster proofed. And that's not good news. You constantly should be making more money, constantly be gaining new skills, constantly figuring out how can I be more valuable, and things like that. So if you're complacent, well, yeah, when something's going to go bad, you're not going to know what to do, because you're not used to working really hard, and work is
Yeah.
really hard.
Could I add one piece on the value point? Because I think that's a
Sure.
great point. I know someone actually who got furloughed recently, who very valuable, always gets good reviews, has been a real asset for a long time to the same company. It so happened there was a confluence of, in this particular case, being of the higher paid individuals with a relatively light workload, because of the fact that a number of the projects that this person had been assigned to had not moved forward, because these are clients who had been suffering themselves from COVID-19. So sometimes it's beyond your control, but at the same time, if you constantly ask yourself, right now, am I being as valuable as I can be? Is there anything I could be volunteering to do? Is there anything I could be doing just to increase my workload, or at least to give the impression or give the sense that I am irreplaceable as much as possible? I think that's just going to help. So I know it's not always doable, but if that's top of mind for you, I think that will bode well, especially if you see, usually disaster. I mean, 9/11 there was no warning at all, at least not for the rank and file. Maybe the CIA had some information they didn't share, but most people had no idea that it was coming. With the recession, I think there were some warning signs. With COVID-19, certainly there were some warning signs. So if you see something in particular is coming, definitely be mindful of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that happens when someone calls me and they're like, I'm being paid so well and I have no idea why. Yeah, that's a red flag,
That's a
right?
bad sign.
Yeah, and I hear that pretty often. So,
Right.
unfortunately for their employers, but for them, those people themselves, will make yourself valuable.
Okay, so we've reached the 2-minute warning, which, by the way, I just made up. Tell us, please, Shaina, what's been your biggest lesson of COVID-19?
Yeah, well, on a very, I guess, like spiritual level, I would say that it just made me realize so many people are not confident that they can make an impact and they can make a difference. And I think this taught us, in a good way or a bad way, everybody can make a difference. The people that didn't stay home when they should have, they can kill people. The people who, did the right thing can save people's lives. And I like to apply that to careers. Every single person has something that they can do and they can make an impact. So that's my first thought.
Yeah, and it's important to have people like you out there who are giving guidance as well as that motivation. So thank you for ending this conversation on an up note. I appreciate all the value you shared here. And look, hopefully we shouldn't need this kind of thinking moving forward, but I think we know that we do. And the more mindful we are always of building our brand, building our business, as well as continuing to add value, the likelier it is that we'll be able to not resist, but withstand challenges like this moving forward.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.